She looked him in the eyes and said, "You're broke, crippled, and useless. Sign the papers and give me the penthouse." She had no idea the man in that wheelchair had already set her downfall in motion. 5 years later, she knocked on his door, broke, sick, and desperate. But some bridges, once burned, stay ash. David Cole had built his empire from nothing. At 52, he stood at the top of the tech world, a self-made billionaire, father of two, and founder of one of Silicon Valley's most respected companies. Cole Technologies was worth over $2 billion, but David's true pride was his family. He wasn't the kind of CEO who missed birthdays or basketball games. Every Friday night, you'd find him in the bleachers, cheering on his oldest son, Nathan, the star forward at their private school. His younger son, Liam, was always close by, throwing mock passes or begging for post-game burgers. David made time for them no matter what. That was who he was: loyal, dependable, present. And then there was Elena, his wife of 18 years. They'd met in high school, dated through college, and built everything together. She was with him when Cole Technologies was just an idea sketched on napkins in their cramped one-bedroom apartment. Through the sleepless nights and the risky pitches, she had believed in him, or so he thought. On the day everything changed, David was making pancakes. It was a Saturday tradition. Liam was at the kitchen table finishing homework, and Nathan was reviewing game footage on his tablet. Elena walked in, said something about renovations on their Malibu beach house, kissed David on the cheek, and left for a workout. Just another normal morning, just another perfect illusion. That night, Nathan nailed a buzzer-beater shot, winning the game. David was on his way home, planning to tell Elena about the surprise Paris anniversary trip he'd booked. He never made it. A delivery truck ran a red light doing 60. It slammed into the driver's side of David's car, crumpling the metal like paper and spinning the vehicle across the intersection. When the wreckage stopped, David was upside down, blood dripping onto the ceiling. Unable to feel his legs, his sons were with him. They walked away with bruises and cuts. David didn't walk at all. The diagnosis came 3 days later: severe spinal trauma, crushed vertebrae. A 50-50th chance he'd ever walk again, depending on how his body responded to therapy. It was a brutal blow, but not as brutal as what came next. For the first week, Elena played the role of devoted wife. She brought him his favorite meals, smiled for visiting friends, reassured the board of directors. But David noticed the shift. She stayed less. Her smiles became thinner. Then one night, he overheard everything. She thought he was asleep, doped on painkillers. She stepped into the hallway with her phone. "Marcus, I can't do this. I didn't sign up to be a nurse," she whispered. "He's paralyzed, half a man. I'm only 42. I have a life to live." "Marcus." David lay frozen. Not from the injury, but from the words. 18 years of marriage, erased. She wasn't just planning to leave. She'd already left him emotionally. She had someone else. And she didn't even care if he hurt her. To her, he was already gone. The next morning, David called Sarah Richardson, his longtime assistant, and the only person he fully trusted. "Execute Operation Phoenix," he whispered. "Sir, are you sure?" she asked. "This will destroy the company's public image." "Do it." David wasn't planning a comeback. He was setting a trap. Over the next 2 weeks, headlines exploded. Cole Technologies was under federal investigation. Embezzlement, fraud, bankruptcy imminent. Investors fled. Stocks crashed. Cameras camped outside the hospital. Elena rushed in with panic on her face, but not the kind that came from worry. It was the kind that comes when someone realizes they're about to lose their lifestyle. "What the hell is happening?" she demanded. "We're broke?" David just stared at her, letting the silence say everything. She didn't ask about the kids. She didn't ask how he was doing. She asked about the penthouse, the cars, the Malibu house. David gave her nothing. That night she made another call. David recorded it. "He's not just crippled," she said to Marcus. "He's broke. There's nothing left to take. I wasted my life on him." She served him divorce papers a week later. While he was still in a wheelchair, still doing therapy, she demanded the penthouse as compensation for putting up with him for 18 years. She said it in front of their children. David didn't argue. He signed everything. What Elena didn't know was that he'd already transferred all valuable assets offshore, legally and quietly. The penthouse? Just a showpiece. The real holdings? Safe, untouched, and invisible to divorce court. She walked away thinking she'd won. David watched her go, already planning the next move. 2 weeks after signing the divorce papers, David was discharged from the hospital. He didn't return to the penthouse Elena had claimed. Instead, he moved into a second property she never knew existed. A fully owned penthouse in Manhattan, purchased years earlier under a trust. It had been intended as an anniversary surprise. Now, it was his safe house. Nathan and Liam came with him. They had seen their mother's betrayal with their own eyes. They didn't ask questions. They just followed the man who had always shown up for them, even broken in a hospital bed. David didn't explain everything. Not yet. He simply told them, "We're starting over." What Elena didn't realize was that David's fall was never real. Cole Technologies was never bankrupt. The so-called embezzlement scandal had been fabricated with precision. With Sarah's help, David had moved the company's most valuable assets, intellectual property, patents, and overseas revenue streams, into hidden holding companies. The fake collapse had only been a test. One, Elena failed in record time. While the world believed Cole Technologies was done, David rebranded. Under the radar, he launched Phoenix Dynamics, a new entity focused on emerging tech, artificial intelligence, sustainable energy, and quantum systems. Quietly, he began rebuilding what he'd once had, but smarter this time, leaner, untouchable. Meanwhile, Elena was celebrating her freedom back in California. She sold the San Francisco penthouse for $12 million and dumped the entire sum into Marcus Rivera's new startup, Quantum Solutions. He told her it would rival the tech elite. She believed him. What she didn't know was that Marcus wasn't a visionary. He wasn't even a real entrepreneur. He was a professional grifter, known in underground circles for jumping from one fake venture to the next, leaving chaos behind. David didn't need to interfere. He knew how the story would end. Back in New York, he was learning how to walk again. Physical therapy became his entire life. His body ached. Progress was agonizingly slow. But each time he wanted to quit, he remembered Elena's words. "You're broke. You're crippled. You're useless." He played them on repeat in his head until they lost all power. 6 months in, David took his first steps without assistance. Liam filmed it. Nathan cried. Their father wasn't just walking, he was rebuilding himself in front of their eyes. Around the same time, cracks started forming in Elena's new life. Quantum Solutions wasn't making money. Deadlines passed. Investors grew nervous. Marcus started missing meetings. Then came the SEC investigation. Fraud, stolen code, inflated valuations. Within 3 years, the entire company collapsed. Elena's $12 million was gone. Worse, her name became a joke in the tech community. The story spread. She had left her paralyzed husband and bet her fortune on a fraud. Industry contacts cut her off. Former friends ghosted her. Media outlets picked up the story. One headline went viral. Wife dumps disabled billionaire, gets conned by scammer, karma. David never spoke publicly. He didn't need to. Elena was unraveling on her own. Marcus disappeared with what little money he could salvage. Cayman Islands. No forwarding address. He left Elena with nothing. No funds, no support, no explanation. Just a pile of legal bills and a ruined reputation. By now, David's company had quietly overtaken Cole Technologies in value. Phoenix Dynamics reached a $5 billion valuation. He was walking again, stronger, sharper, surrounded by a loyal team, and most importantly, raising 2 boys who had learned what real strength looked like. One night over dinner, Nathan finally asked, "Dad, did you know everything? Even back then?" David nodded. "I had a plan the moment I knew she'd turned her back. I just needed her to show me how far she'd go." Liam looked stunned. "But why not stop her?" "Because people reveal themselves when they think there are no consequences," David said. "Now we know who she really is, and she has to live with it." By this point, Elena was living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Oakland, working retail, dodging creditors, and clipping coupons. Her designer handbags were gone. So were the luxury vacations, the charity events, and the social media followers. All of it gone. But her downfall wasn't finished yet. Strange symptoms began: fatigue, bleeding, pain that wouldn't go away. She ignored them for months, hoping it was stress. It wasn't. The diagnosis came hard. Stage 3 cervical cancer, aggressive, spreading. Without immediate treatment, she had 6 months to live. She had no insurance, no savings, no support, and only one person in the world who might help. 5 years had passed since the accident. 5 years since Elena walked out on her husband and sons, convinced she'd traded up. Now, broke and dying, she stepped into the elevator of a Manhattan high-rise she once mocked as a backup property. She had rehearsed what to say the entire flight from California. She would apologize, beg, try to appeal to the man who once loved her. Maybe he still did. Maybe the father of her children would find it in his heart to help. The elevator stopped at the top floor, the penthouse. When the door opened, she didn't see a broken man. David stood tall, strong, and utterly composed. He opened the door himself. No assistants, no nurse. Behind him, 2 young men stood silently. Nathan and Liam, taller, older, no longer boys, but their expressions were unmistakable, cold, unreadable. "David," she said, her voice cracking. "Elena," he replied, calm, no emotion, not even anger. She began, but the words stumbled. "I need to talk to you." He didn't move, didn't invite her in. She launched into it all at once. The cancer, the lack of insurance, the specialists who wanted $300,000 up front, the treatments she couldn't afford. She told him everything, not out of trust, out of desperation. "I know I don't deserve it," she said, choking on the words. "But for the sake of our history, for the boys, please." David listened silently. When she finished, he stepped forward and spoke in the same, even tone. "You called me useless. You told me I was dead weight. You tried to take everything I built and gave it to a man who stole from you and vanished. You made that choice. And now you're here because you want something again." "I'm dying," she said, tears streaming now. "I have no one else." Nathan stepped forward. "We were here, and you left us." "You didn't just betray Dad," Liam added. "You betrayed all of us." Elena looked at her sons. The realization hit harder than the diagnosis. She hadn't just lost David. She'd lost her family. Her own children were strangers to her now. David remained still. "You want help," he said. "But 5 years ago, I was in that position, and you walked away. I begged you with my eyes because I couldn't move anything else. And you didn't just leave. You cashed out." "I didn't know it would turn out like this," she said quietly. He nodded. "That's the point. You bet against me. And lost." She glanced behind him at the walls. Family photos she wasn't part of. Nathan's graduation. Liam's product launch. David and a woman she didn't recognize. Laughing, arms around each other. A new life. A better one. "I loved you once," David said. "But love is built on loyalty. You traded that for money. And when that ran out, you came back not out of love, but because you have no one else left to use." "I'm not asking to be part of your life again," she said. "Just help me stay alive." David turned to his sons. "This isn't just my decision." Liam looked at her. "You didn't come to our graduations. You didn't call on birthdays. Now you want us to pretend you're still our mom?" Nathan shook his head. "We watched Dad rebuild from nothing. You watched from a distance and said nothing." Elena's knees buckled. She dropped to the floor. "I'm sorry," she whispered. David looked down at her. "I believe you. But sorry doesn't erase 5 years of silence. It doesn't undo what you did when you thought I was finished." He paused. "You're not dying because of me. You're dying because of choices you made. I didn't do this to you, and I won't save you from it." For a long moment, no one spoke. Finally, David stepped back and closed the door without a word. No yelling, no dramatic gestures. Just silence. Behind the closed door, Nathan and Liam stood quietly. David turned to them and said, "That's the last chapter." Outside, Elena collapsed against the hallway wall. She had come looking for mercy. Instead, she found consequences. Elena didn't die that night, but something inside her did. She had come to the penthouse hoping for compassion, maybe even redemption. What she received was clarity. Her sons were gone. The man she betrayed had outgrown the need for vengeance. He simply didn't see her as part of his world anymore. She took the elevator down, rode a train back to the airport, and returned to Oakland with less hope than when she left. There were no miracles waiting, no more cards to play. The cancer didn't slow down. Within weeks, it had spread to her lymph nodes. She was in and out of urgent care clinics, underfunded, understaffed, overwhelmed. No one knew her name, and no one cared about her past. To them, she was just another uninsured patient begging for time. She applied for public assistance but was rejected. Too many gaps in paperwork, not enough stability. She tried raising money online, but her past worked against her. Commenters dug up old articles, reposted screenshots of the headlines mocking her fall. Wife of tech mogul begs for help after abandoning him post-accident. The comments were brutal, cruel. People don't forgive what they see as poetic justice. Some called it karma. Others called it the internet doing its job. Either way, the message was clear. No one was coming to save her. Meanwhile, across the country, David's life had never been more stable. Phoenix Dynamics was thriving, with partnerships in AI, defense, and clean energy. Forbes ran a cover story titled, "The Phoenix Rises, How David Cole Turned Collapse into a New Era." But David didn't care about media attention. His focus was family. Nathan, now 21, was excelling at MIT. He had earned internships other students only dreamed about. Liam, 19, had already sold his first app and was launching a second. Both boys were grounded, driven, and loyal. Not because they'd been sheltered, but because they'd seen firsthand what betrayal looks like. David had remarried. His new wife, Rebecca, was a trauma surgeon he met during his rehabilitation. They didn't fall for each other instantly. It took time. But she had seen him when he couldn't walk, couldn't dress himself, couldn't even get through a session without collapsing. And she never once looked at him like he was broken. That mattered more than anything. Their relationship was built on mutual respect, shared values, and total transparency. She didn't care about his wealth. She cared about the man who fought every day to stand up again. Together, they created a new home, a real one. They didn't talk about Elena often. There was no need. Her absence wasn't a wound. It was a closed chapter. But every now and then, David would hear about her, through industry rumors, a friend of a friend, a passing headline, and he'd feel nothing. Not pity, not anger, just distance. That was her real punishment. Not bankruptcy, not cancer, but total irrelevance. She had thrown away everything real in her life, believing she could buy it back later. She had chosen short-term gratification over long-term loyalty. Now, even at her most vulnerable, no one saw her as a victim. Even her doctor, the one clinic that still saw her, spoke with gentle detachment when delivering updates. The most recent scan was worse. The cancer had reached her liver. At this point, she wasn't fighting for life. She was fighting for pain relief, for dignity. She wrote a letter to David. It was never delivered. She considered writing to her sons, but she didn't. She knew it wouldn't change anything. She had already spoken her truth, and they had responded with their silence. Her landlord finally gave her notice. Too many missed payments, no one to co-sign, no savings to dip into. She moved into a shelter where she spent most nights in a cot surrounded by strangers who didn't know or care who she used to be. She was 47. Once she had walked red carpets at tech galas, hosted charity auctions, flown first class to Europe on a whim. Now she stood in line for donated meals and hoped her painkillers would last until morning. Elena had thought money made her powerful. She'd learned too late that character is what sustains you when everything else is gone. Elena died alone in a hospice facility just outside Oakland. The staff was kind, but distant. She wasn't the only patient fighting for time, and her story wasn't the most tragic. There were no visitors, no flowers, no final goodbyes. Her final days were quiet, painful. She spoke little, ate less. In her last moments, she asked one of the nurses to read her a printout of a news article she had clipped weeks earlier. It was a feature about Phoenix Dynamics expanding into clean energy. David Cole had announced a $100 million scholarship fund for low-income STEM students. Nathan and Liam were photographed next to him, both now full-time executives in the company. The article praised them as the next generation of visionaries. She smiled faintly. It was the last expression she ever made. Across the country, life moved forward. David didn't attend Elena's funeral. There wasn't one. Her body was cremated without ceremony. The hospice staff sent a generic email to the emergency contact she'd listed years ago, an old assistant's phone number, no longer in service. When news of her death eventually reached David, it came through a legal notice regarding unclaimed remains. He declined to respond. So did the boys. They had mourned her 5 years ago when she left them for a fantasy that crumbled under its own lies. Now they had nothing left to grieve. That year, Nathan graduated from MIT and accepted a senior position at Phoenix Dynamics. Liam launched a new AI platform that quickly attracted national attention. The company was thriving, but more importantly, so was the family. David and Rebecca adopted a baby girl through a private agency. They named her Grace. For David, it wasn't about replacing what was lost. It was about choosing what to build. He hadn't sought revenge. He hadn't broken laws or ruined reputations. He had simply stepped back and let the truth do what it always does, reveal everything in time. People asked him occasionally if he ever thought about his first wife. He'd respond with the same calm every time. I think about how someone's true character is only revealed when they think you're no longer useful to them. Once you see that truth, you can't unsee it. David never spoke badly about Elena in public. He didn't need to. The facts were enough. And over time, fewer people even remembered the scandal. New stories replaced old ones. The world kept spinning. But in the quiet of his home, when his daughter giggled in his lap and his sons debated startup ideas across the dinner table, David remembered everything. Not out of bitterness, but as a reminder. That loyalty matters. That adversity isn't the end of a story. It's the beginning of the one worth telling. And that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do to someone who betrayed you is simply live well without them. He didn't need to slam doors. He didn't need dramatic speeches. He didn't even need closure. He had something better: peace.